guys, thank you so much for joining me today for this reflexing tutorial. Now, reflexing a rose is one of my favorite little techniques that practically anybody can do. When we talk about reflexing a rose, it's all about a simple little trick, which I'm going to share with you today, that helps us alter the shape and style of a simple rose. Now, the roses we're using, they don't have to be anything crazy expensive. You don't have to use the best garden roses or crazy long stem roses. You can do this with pretty much any type of rose, although certain varieties do tend to look a little better than others. Let's take a look at how to start reflexing a rose. To begin with, I've got a single stem of Menta rose here, which is one of my favorite varieties of roses. It has a very soft, neutral blush hue to it, which I think is just absolutely perfect. What we're going to start by doing is removing any of the guard petals. These are the petals that are a little bit damaged or a little bit green, and usually they're a little bit tougher, which makes them a little bit less attractive. Once we've removed the guard petals, I'm going to start taking the rose and taking a petal at a time. I'm just going to very gently fold it backwards using my thumb and my forefinger. As you'll see here, I'm going to continue reflexing the petals, one by one, just slowly working my way around the outside of the rose. Now, when reflexing, I always work from the outside in, and the next petal to reflex is always the one that is on the outermost edge. As you work your way around the rose, you might find that as you get towards the center petals, things start to become a little tougher and reflexing isn't so easy because the petals are a little more stiff. To resolve this, just twirl the rose between your fingers, softening up the petals and just allowing the rose to become a little more open. Once you've done this, you can then continue reflexing, folding back the petals one by one. Now, it's important to note that when we're reflexing, we're not damaging the petals. We're not tearing them, we're not ripping them. All that we're doing is popping them back, opening up the rose to really increase the size and the impression of the rose. Doing so allows you to create arrangements that look like this, and they give the rose a much more contemporary look and feel. Once you've reflexed the majority of the petals, you will find that when you get towards the center, it's a little tougher, and the petals maybe don't quite reflex, as in they keep on popping back into the shape, even after we have spun them. When you reach this point, it's important to stop reflexing and allow that natural rose center to stay firm and upright while the outer petals are fully reflexed, creating a beautifully reflexed rose. Let's take another look at the technique again. So here we have another rose, the same type, this one, Menta, exactly as before, and we're going to start in exactly the same way, by taking the outer petals and slowly folding them down, just kind of inverting the shape of them by popping our thumb through the back, not damaging them, not piercing them, but just folding them slowly down. Once we have the outer edge petals, you'll note that the rose looks so much bigger and so much more contemporary too. We then continue reflexing the petals, one by one, working our way around the rose, selecting the petal which is most towards the outside, inverting that one before proceeding onwards. Once we get towards the center of the rose, you'll find the petals might become a little more stiff and maybe not as pliable, meaning that it can be more difficult to reflex them. Once you reach this stage, it's time to stop to preserve the natural beauty of the rose. This technique can be used on many types of roses, although as mentioned, certain varieties do perform better than others. Some of my favorites to do this technique on include Naomi, red or white, Menta, Quicksand, Toffee, Sahara, and Freedom. It's important to note that once we have finished reflexing our roses, we haven't damaged the vase life of the rose whatsoever. The rose will last the exact same amount of time. We won't have reduced the vase life in any way by using the reflexing technique. All we've done is increased the overall visual impression. We've opened up the rose, given it a more contemporary feel, and some would say added more value to the rose too, because it fills a lot more space. Out of curiosity, let's take one more look at reflexing a rose. However, this time we'll use a different variety. This rose I have here is White O'Hara, one of my favorite roses. And as you guessed it, I'm going to begin using the same technique. I'm going to start by taking off the guard petals, exactly as I did with the previous roses, and then slowly, one by one, start to reflex the rose petals on the outside first. It's important to work from the outside in so that we don't damage any of the other petals. And I'm just taking them one by one and using my thumb, just pushing the rose petal out so that it stays inverted as opposed to its natural shape. Once I've completed all of the petals that are towards the very outside of the rose, I'm then going to continue working my way inwards, inverting petals one by one, reflexing them out to fill a lot more space. Now, it's worth mentioning that the reflexing technique is one of my favorite techniques, and it's so popular in wedding and event design, simply because if we're taking one single rose, once we've reflexed it, it can fill the space and volume that maybe it would take 3 or 4 roses. So it's a great little tip and technique for when you're arranging your flowers to give them more bang for their buck, to give them additional value, and to make them feel bigger and even more voluptuous. Now, it is worth mentioning that this technique is not for everyone. Some people prefer a very natural look and feel, and reflexing can also help with that too. For example, take this O'Hara rose. Once we've got towards the center where the petals become a little too difficult to reflex, what I'm going to do is just give it a little spin as we looked at earlier, and you'll note that the center opens up, giving the real true effect of an authentic garden rose. Reflexing is a great little technique, and I hope whatever type of business or practice you have with your flowers, this technique can be incorporated in some way, whether it's with event work or wedding work or even just flowers for your home. Thanks so much guys for following on for this tutorial, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.